Hi guys, today we're going to be creating this animated loop. There are a number of base meshes at your disposal in Cinema 4D in the content browser. As you can see, I've gone with the elephant base mesh, but you guys can use any of the available meshes if you don't want to go with the elephant. Just keep in mind that I am going to be using the bend deformer to animate the head left and right, so probably best to go with something that has a head if you want to follow along with that part of the tutorial. Now we're going to be going through this step by step, creating this loop animation, paying particular attention to depth of field in Cinema 4D. We're also going to be looking at how we can just change one option that will allow us to see depth of field live through our viewport. So let's get started on this, here we go. So we can grab the elephant out of the content browser here. Just search for elephant, make sure that you've clicked this arrow to go back to the home part of this content browser. So type in elephant and hit enter. And here's the elephant base. This is what we're going to be using to set up our scene. Let's go back to objects and we can just middle mouse click on the elephant base null. That will automatically select all the children. And then we can right click and just connect objects and delete. Just so we're just going to get one piece of geometry for our elephant. So now we can set up the bend deformer that's going to give us the elephant looking left and right animation. So select your elephant base object, hold down shift. Holding down shift will automatically add the bend deformer as a child of the elephant. Just let go of the click and there you see it'll be automatically added there. Now fit to parent, we don't need to click it because it's already fitted to the parent. And now we can just set up our bend deformer box here so that it's just going to be bending the head of the elephant. So if we just increase the strength, we can just get an idea of what we have to do with this bend deformer. So let's just kind of reduce the size of it here a little bit because we don't need it to be that big. And I'm gonna hit R on my keyboard and I'm gonna rotate this 90 degrees around the x-axis. And I'm gonna bring it forward. Now I hit spacebar to toggle between current tool and previous tool. And bring this forward because we just want to see movement in the head of the elephant. So now let's see if we just mess around with the strength of this bend. So we need to bring it back a little bit because the ears are kind of outside of the box, not fully in the box we'll say, so it's behaving a bit strangely. So let's go back to our bend object and increase the size of it along the Y, just to get that ear in there. Now it looks like the foot and the leg is gonna be in there as well, but we might get away with it anyway. Yeah, because we're not going to be increasing strength too much. So there is a little bit of movement in the feet, but that's fine. We get away with that. The ear is still actually acting a bit strange, but it might be okay once we put this into a subdivision surface object, which we'll do now. So select your elephant base object, hold down Alt this time. Holding down Alt will automatically make the selected object a child of the subdivision surface. And then release your click before you let go of Alt. Now if we go back to our bend deformer, yeah, so the ear is actually fine now. So that's good. So that's going to be how we're animating the elephant looking left and right. So we're not going to do that right now. We're not going to set up the animation right now. We're now going to, let's just turn off this visibility of our bend deformer, that purple box there, so we can't see that. And let's create a cloner and let's make this subdivision surface a child of it. So now we can go into our cloner object. Let's set the mode to grid array. No, we're going to go for honeycomb array actually, and we're going to reduce the count the count height there to 1, and the width we're going to go down to 6 on that. And let's see. Oh, hang on a second now. What am I doing? Go back to 10 and 10. What we want to do is change the orientation to X and Z first of all. And then we can reduce the count width down to 3. And the count height, we'll see what we're going to do with that in a minute. So we need to increase the distance there between our elephants. So we can do that here with size height, like that. Okay, something like that. So now we have our row of elephants and they're all in a line. So now what we can do is we can set up our camera. So let's create one now, make it active. And we're going to be turning on depth of field for this. So we'll do that now. Go into your render settings and let's turn this renderer to the physical renderer. Go into the physical options here, we can turn on depth of field. Now we leave the sampling quality at low for now. And now if we middle mouse click and hop into our top view, we can use this orange circle here to drag our focus distance. You'll see a change in there, and that's going to be where our camera is going to be focused. So let's say we want to focus on this elephant here, this guy right here. Let's just position the camera to around there and get the focus, this orange circle which controls the focus distance, just right on top of this elephant's head. Now if we middle mouse click and middle mouse click again, if we do a render to picture viewer here now, we should see some depth of field. So we didn't actually get any because we forgot to, in our camera object in the physical tab, we need to reduce the f-stop here. We'll go to about 0.2, and let's try that again. Okay, so now we're getting a bit of blur. You can see that if I switch between the two renders there, you can see that we're getting that blur there. Okay, that's fine. Next, we want to reposition our camera just a little bit. Oh, I want to show you something else before I move on as well. What we can do is we can create a cube, and that cube can act as a target for our focus distance. So if I go into the camera here and go into the object tab, we can create the cube, put the cube into this field here, and then our camera will always focus on that cube. So if we create a cube, we'll call this focus cube, and we can put this wherever we like. So we want it to focus on this elephant here. So I'm just going to make it about the same size as his head. And let's go to our camera and let's just drag the focus cube now down to our focus cube object. So let's zoom in a bit. Now if I render the picture viewer, you'll see that, well, you won't see anything because the cube is still visible. We don't want the cube to be visible, of course, so let's right click on it, go to Cinema 4D tags, and let's add a compositing tag, and we can turn off seen by camera, so it won't be seen by the camera, and we don't want it to be seen by rays, and we don't want it to cast shadows or any of that. So let's try that again. Okay. So now our cube is here, so that's why the camera is focused on this part of our scene. So what we can also do is we can go to our options here in our viewport and turn on depth of field. Now we can get actual live feedback of our focus and how our depth of field is behaving. So if I move this cube back here, you'll see that the foreground is going out of focus and the focus distance is, or the camera is following the cube basically. The focus of the camera is following the cube. So if I bring that back, now the focus is on the elephant again. So that's a really handy way to, if you wanted to animate your focus distance, you could do it with a setup like this. Okay, so if I go back into my camera, I actually want to, let's see. Let's zoom in a bit more on this elephant. Something like this, and I want to rotate the camera as well, so the elephants are kind of starting up in this corner of our scene, and they're kind of going down towards this corner of our shot, we'll say. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so what we can do is, to get a bit more blur, we can go back to our camera and let's set the f-stop to 0.1. And I'm just going to turn off the depth of field preview in our live viewer there. Well, I'll just leave it on. There's no point turning it off. It's not actually slowing us down at all. So now that we reduced the f-stop, we can see that we're getting a bit more blur there. So that's better. It's also increased our render time as well. So, but that's looking much better. Let's create now a floor. So just click on the floor button there. That'll add in a floor, and we want to make sure that it is flush with our elephant's feet. So let's just bring it down, zoom right in, and I'm just moving it over so I can get this right on the feet of the elephant, something like that. I'm going to go back into perspective, and now I want to jump into my elephant material that came in when I brought it in from my content browser, and I want to just make a change to this. So I'm going to go into my reflectance channel and add a Beckman. Let's set the attenuation to additive, and we can bring the reflection strength down just a little bit, and we can bring the specular strength down quite a lot. And let's see what that's looking like now. So that's going to render away there, and while it is, I'm going to create another material for my floor, and I'm actually going to duplicate this material and call it floor. Let's open that up, and for color, let's set that to be white. Apply it to our floor. Let's do a render to picture viewer there and see our previous render while we're waiting for this one. So we're up to 11 seconds on render time now. Okay, so yeah, cool. So now we can move on and we can introduce some lights to our scene. So let's create a light. I'm going to move I'm going to be messing with my camera position now as we go along. You guys can set up whatever camera position you want, just as long as you have your focus cube set up. It doesn't matter if I jump into my top view here, and if I zoom out, the focus distance is going to continue to focus on the cube. So that's really handy. So we can move this around any way we like. And we go for something like this. For now, I might move it again. And I want to make my, let's have a look. Let's make the elephant material. Let's increase the reflection strength all the way up to 100. Okay, so now to lights, back to lights. So we have a light. Let's just bring it along here. I want to make it so that it's pretty close to the floor. So I'm going to bring it down, and I'm going to bring it kind of around here. We'll say it's going to be around here. If you just see where your camera is, it's going to be just about there, kind of in the, just where the camera is meeting the elephants. And we want to turn on shadows for this light, turn on area shadows, and let's create another light. I'm going to hold down Control, hovering over the Z axis handle for the light, hold down Control. Then we're going to see that icon pop up beside the cursor to tell us we are duplicating. I'm going to bring up this all the way back. Oh, I let go of Control there too early. Don't let go of Control, release click first. So I'm going to go into my top view here, so I can bring this light all the way back to about here, move it over slightly, and I'm going to move this up. So you can see that how the light is reacting up here in our perspective view. So I'm going to bring that up so that the light, we're going to get some nice specular highlights along the backs of our elephants. Something like that. And let's do a render to picture viewer on that and see what it's looking like. Okay, so that's given us some interesting results. So again, change of camera position and introducing those lights, adding the shadows. It's looking a lot better now than the previous render. What we can do is we can reduce the intensity of that backlight. We'll call this the rim light. And we can bring, oh, we need to turn off shadows as well for this. We don't want two shadows. We already have shadows set up for this one. So let's go into our rim light, turn off shadows, and let's reduce the intensity down to about 60. And again, just render into picture viewer to see if we like the actual changes that we made. If we don't, we can go back. So yeah, that's pretty good. I want to go into this light here, maybe bring it over here a bit and see what kind of difference that'll make. So this is kind of this is the main workflow I use when I'm lighting up a scene. I'll make a change and render to picture viewer, and then I'll just flick between the previous render and the new render just to see if I like the actual change that I've made. So yeah, I'm happy enough with that. It's getting rid of this washed out bright area from underneath the elephant, which is good. So yeah, that's looking pretty cool. What I might do as well is kind of go back into Cinema 4D here now and select this light object. Go into the project tab. I'm actually going to select both my lights, and I'm going to exclude the floor. So I can just, with both lights selected, go into the project tab and let's drag down this floor object. So now we're going to exclude illumination, we're going to exclude specular, and we're going to exclude shadows from the floor. So let's see what that looks like, because I might not like that at all. I think I might just exclude the specular. I'm just going to exclude the specular. So we can click on this so that it won't be excluded, and click on the shadows also so that they won't be excluded. And let's render to picture viewer again. And now the only thing that's going to be excluded is specular. So I'm just going to delete this render here so that I'm able to compare these two. So I actually don't like that change. So I'm just going to go back to, I like the specular highlight I'm getting here. It's just the reflection of the floor bouncing back up. So I've kind of made it look not as good as before. So I'm going to undo that change there. I'm just going to Control Z until that disappears from the exclude in our project tab of our lights. Okay, so let's have a look at what we're getting now. So we're doing a lot. I know I'm doing a lot of render to picture viewers here now. So this is what our scene is looking like at the moment. Okay, so let's turn on ambient occlusion. So we're going to get those contact shadows where our floor meets the feet of our elephants. Let's do that now. So ambient occlusion is turned on. We'll get some nice contact shadows where our feet meet the floor. And also maybe we can, let's see if we can do something with our main light here. This will be our key light. Let's see if we can maybe bring it up a bit along the Y. So I've just brought that up along the Y, so it's kind of, more in line with the ears of our elephant. And I'm just going to do, again, render to picture viewer just to see if I like that change or not. Okay. So I think I like that change, so I'm going to keep it. So now we can go ahead and animate our scene. Just having a look for those contact shadows, and I can't really see them, to be honest, because our depth of field is so blurry. I'll leave it on now because I do plan to increase the quality of this depth of field, and to do that we go into our render settings, we go to the physical option, and we can increase the sampling quality to medium. But I don't want to do that right now because I'm doing a lot of render to picture viewers, and once I do increase that to medium, then the render time is going to shoot right up. So I'm going to hold off on that for now, and I'm going to focus on animating this scene. So we can frame 0, on frame 0, let's set a keyframe here on the bend deformer, on the strength of the bend deformer. So we're going to go to -19 first of all, add a keyframe, go to frame 45, set this to, or no, we're going to go to frame, yeah, we're going to frame 45, and we can set this to maybe +14. We might go a bit more. Yeah, we'll go to about 35 degrees on that, and add another keyframe right there on frame 45, and then we just need to duplicate this. So we can select this keyframe, hold down Control, and we can just duplicate that so that we're gonna get that loop rocking there. So if we play that, you'll see that our elephant heads are elephant heads are animating there. Jesus, that took a long time to get out. Okay, and now we can move on to animating the actual offset of our elephants. So in the intro video to this tutorial, the elephants on either side were actually moving along. They were moving backwards. So we can do that with the offset here. So when I set this up, when I was animating the offset, it was actually moving the elephants on either side. So we'll try and fix that now. I think that, yeah, so I think that what I need to do is set this to be circle. Yeah, and let's see. Yes, so that was it. Set the form to circle, and set the count width to 4 and the count height to 15. And now we can animate this offset as I intended to. It's just not letting us go past 0 or 100. So we'll see what we're going to do about that. So we might have to just move our camera in a bit closer. So obviously we have to move our cube as well now, because we've obviously moved the arrangement of our cloner. So we're going to have to move our focus cube back to an elephant's head. Now it doesn't have to be that elephant's head, it can be whatever elephant's head you wish to focus on. Make sure when you're moving around your viewport now you're not in this camera. Just make sure it's deactivated. And I'm going to go for this elephant's head this time, and I'm going to make my camera active again now, and I'm just going to set this up. And I'm going to go closer to the elephant also, because if I want this animation of our offset to work, because I want to get that loop. So at 100% you can kind of see the elephant's butt there, and then if I bring this to 0%, I want to see the exact proportion of butt in when the offset's set to 0%, as I do when I set the offset to 100% so that we'll be able to get the loop. So I think that is good enough for getting that loop. Maybe we'll go in closer. And I think I'm happy enough with that for the loop. You can see where the butt gets cut off there at 0. And then when the butt gets cut off there again at 0, it looks like it's in exactly the same position, to be honest. Okay, so let's render to picture viewer again and see what we're getting. So now our camera has been moved closer to our elephant. Is that focused properly? I think it is, yeah. And let's see our render time as well. It is shooting up quite a lot. Okay, so I fast forwarded there, so the render time is looking like it's about this. So it's okay. We're doing physical render, so you know that's not too bad for what we're doing here. I want to mess around with my rim light a bit more. I'm going to see if I can bring it maybe down a little bit, or maybe up a little bit. No, we're going to go down. I'm not really sure. I'm not happy with the lighting, basically. So I'm trying to just make myself a little bit more happy with the lighting. Maybe if I reduce the intensity down to 40%, and let's try another render to picture viewer on that. So I love when I make a change and there's pretty much no difference in the result. Well, actually, I don't love that. I actually hate that. It's really annoying. But okay, so I think I'm going to leave it at that for the lighting, because I don't want to keep messing around with this. You guys have the time. If you guys have the time, just maybe mess around with the lighting a bit more on that. Maybe if I actually brighten up the color of the elephant, that might do something for us, because right now it's using this dark red. So I might just kind of go for a white or an off-white and see if... let me just check where my light is now, because it's a bit too far back. Something like that. So I'm going to leave it around here. And yeah, I think maybe changing the color of the material has actually really improved the overall look of this for me. I'm kind of liking this a bit better. So it was the color that I wasn't liking. It was just very reddish. It was the original color that came in with the base mesh for the elephant. So just kind of changing the color of the material now is really, for me anyway, just made me like this a lot more. So I'm happy to move on. What else are we doing? Another thing I was talking about earlier was the fact that ambient occlusion isn't really making much of a difference. So I might just turn it off. And yeah, that'll improve render times for us. So next we need to animate this offset as well, because we haven't done that yet. So let's go to frame 0. Let's set the offset here to 0%, and then we can go to frame 90 and set the offset to 100%. Now we should have this loop. So right now the bend deformer, it looks a bit rough. It doesn't seem very smooth. It kind of stops and then starts a bit too rigidly. So I'm going to hit Shift F3 and see if we can fix that at all. Let's see, where is yeah, so it's here. Shift F3 to bring up your dope sheet. And let's open up this cloner and get our bend. Just click on the bend, click on strength, and then hit tab. That'll show us our F curves. So what we can do is we can kind of just drag this out. I'm holding down Control to keep my Bezier handles straight. otherwise they're going to go up and down. So just hold down Alt and then we can smoothen that out a little bit. Let's see if that's made any difference. And I also want to Shift F3 again. I want to go back into my curves now, and I want to kind of make this more linear. So I'm holding down Control as I'm dragging this Bezier handle. I'm going to go right. If I just zoom in, you can zoom in the same way you would in the viewport in Cinema. I'm going to bring this Bezier handle right close up to the keyframe there. I'm going to do the same with this one, so that we're not getting any easing in and easing out at the start and the end of our animation. So we'll get a smoother loop. So maybe we do want the easing in at the start. So Shift F3 again to bring up your dope sheet, hit Tab again, and let's just ease this in a tad. And now let's have a look at that. So it looks like it hasn't done much for us. It's still very, kind of jumpy, so we are going to have to ease in again at the end. Shift F3 to bring up your F curves, and let's see if we can find this Bezier handle. We need to zoom in quite a lot, and let's just drag that out so that it's going to ease out as well. It's still going to be a bit jumpy, but I'm going to leave it as is. That's our loop. Animation all set up. The elephant's heads are moving left and right, and these guys are moving backwards. Now if you want them to move forwards, all you have to do is set that up in the offset. So instead of going from 0% on the first frame to 100 on the last frame, just invert that. It'll be 100 on the first frame and 0 on the last frame. Okay, so let's do a render to picture viewer on this. This is going to be one of the last render to picture viewers I do, I promise. And let's compare. Well, we don't need to compare. We didn't actually change any of the lighting or anything. But what I want to do now is I want to finally change the quality of the depth of field. I want to up it. So it's going to increase our render times. We're already at 50 minutes or 50 seconds. That'll be some animation. 50 minute per frame animation. So we're at about 50 seconds at the moment. When we make this change, which we're going to do now, go into your render settings. So render settings, go to the physical options here, and depth of field, sampling quality, we're going to go for medium. So if we do a render to picture viewer on that now, that's going to take probably double the time. And I'm going to fast forward right now. Okay, so that's almost finished rendering, and you can see that it took a really long time. So 2 minutes 50 seconds, it's pretty big per frame. So if we're going to be rendering out 90 frames of this, you know, it's going to be a good few hours. But look at the difference. Look at the difference that has made. So yeah, we could probably bring down render time a little bit. What we could do is go into our render settings and go to physical, and we could reduce the shading subdivisions max down to 4. And also what we could do is, and it will actually look a bit nicer as well, is go into our floor material, and we can just break up our reflection a bit. If we use it, let's go into the reflectance channel, go to the layer mask, and we can use a noise shader. Let's jump into it. Go for Booyah. We'll go for a Booyah on that. And that'll break up our reflection a bit. Some parts will be reflective, some not. I'll just show you what I mean. If we go into our noise that we just created here in the layer mask, it's going to turn off reflection in the dark areas and turn it on in the white areas, and that's what that's going to do. So let's render to picture viewer on that again. Okay, so I'm going to jump in here before this is finished in rendering, and I think I want to do something about my f-stop because it's very blurry everywhere except for the focus area. So I want to go back into my camera object, go into the physical, and let's bring this up to about 0.4, maybe 0.3. You can see that it's actually reacting, changes are being made in our viewport as well, which is very handy. Again, you can just turn that on and off here. So we'll go 0.3 on that, and we'll render to picture viewer again. So yes, we'll stop that. So this one that we were rendering there was going for about 1:20, and it's almost finished. So you can see that we did cut down the render time from this previous render quite a bit, and we did that, if you remember, by going into our render settings, and we went into the physical here, and we just reduced that shading subdivisions by 1, and we're also breaking up our reflections as well. In our reflectance channel in layer mask, we have added this booyah noise, and it's just turning off reflections in some parts of our floor and leaving them on in some parts of the floor also. So you can see the effect it's having there. It's kind of cool. It's adding to the overall look, and it's helping us out by reducing render times as well. So that's good. So yeah, okay, so I think I want to get a bit more blur. So you can see that also we've reduced render times by bringing up the f-stop there. But I'm not exactly happy with it, so I'm going to go to 0.2, and I think I'm going to leave it at that, guys. So I'll just fast forward this. So you can see that we're getting a much smaller render time just by some of the changes we've made. Now, I did say I was finished, but I'm going to increase render time a bit more, because now that we can see our feet a bit better, I want to turn back on Ambient Occlusion and render to picture viewer again. So I'll fast forward this for you guys as well, so you don't have to wait. So you can see the difference that is making. The ambient occlusion is giving us some nice contact shadows, and it's really improving the overall look of our scene. So now we can set this up for render. Let's go into our render settings, go to output, 1280 by 720. I'm going to leave it at that. No, I'm not. I'm going 1920 by 1080 because that's what I like to do. 1920 by 1080 for the output. We're going to go for all frames. Now this is going to increase render time again, of course. So you guys can leave yours at 1280 by 720 if you wish. Save this to a place. Let's see what place I'm going to save this to. So I have a folder set up, and I'm going to save my sequence into this folder. So this is where I'm saving it. It's going to be a PNG sequence. And I think that's it. So output 1920 by 1080. You guys leave it at 1280 by 720 to reduce render times. All frames. Saving it here, and that's it. So we can render to picture viewer on that, and that is going to render away, and it's going to make for a pretty cool looping animation. So I hope you learned a lot, guys. That's the end of the tutorial. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe, and also I'd love to see you guys' results, so make sure to head over to my Instagram if you are sharing your elephant depth of field renders on Instagram, please do let me know just by tagging me in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.